Hey everyone, I am here with Sonia Scorsone. Hey Sonia, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, thanks. How are
Great,
you
thanks.
today?
I'm good. Thanks for being on. And Sonia's in Lexington, Kentucky with United Real Estate. And we're talking about basically pre-qualifying leads. And should you work with every lead that comes your way? I mean, it's pretty enticing, but you have some pretty strong views on if you should or shouldn't. What are some of your tips?
Well, I do. I think timing is time in general is valuable for everyone,
Right,
and in this profession, in order to stay strong and not go into burnout,
right,
it's important to choose the work that you're going to the folks you're going to be working with. So with that, I feel that it's very important, first of all, in order to make sure you're meeting their needs, to know that if they're needing one type of real estate, perhaps that you don't specialize in,
hmm,
as an example, residential versus commercial,
right.
that it's important you refer them out to the right agent that can help them.
What do you think about if it is something that you're like interested in learning?
I think that's great.
Mhm.
This is definitely a business where one can learn lots with every single transaction.
Right.
Um, I think it's important to be honest with that client though, and let them know that you this is perhaps not your specialty, but
Right.
you're willing to help them. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out to another agent that you're familiar with that is more of an expert to work with you, so that you
Right.
can work together with them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to do it too. And I find like a lot of residential agents, they're more like single family agents and they'll try to do like investment type stuff. And it's like,
Hmm.
it's not the same at all. There's nuances, right?
Yeah, commercial property can be a whole different animal,
Yeah,
definitely,
commercial
than
too,
just
right? But
residential.
even like
Hmm.
a rental property, something
Right.
small can even be different.
Hmm.
Working with a tenant instead of the seller is very different, you know?
That's true.
But yeah, no, that's a great tip. So yeah, so you would say like, no, I can't. Like, here, I have, yeah, you would be honest with them or whatever. But that could be one example of people that you don't necessarily work with.
Right,
Hmm.
right. And then another would be if that person has unrealistic expectations
Oh my
or
God.
requests, you know,
Right.
and that can be anything from, especially if you're working with a seller, and pricing their home correctly, the
Hmm.
time frames that they're expecting or looking at, viewing abilities for the house, the property,
Right.
and then even just the strategies and promotions that you put together to sell that home. If everybody's not on the same page, then that
It's
could be a
not.
problem.
No,
Yeah.
that makes sense, and I think that's, like, a really good point. I mean, I've had sellers that are like, "Well, we want somebody that's gonna, like, put it in the paper or do an open house every weekend," and I'm like, I mean, this was, like, before houses sold in 2 minutes, and
Yes.
I'm just like, I don't even think they make the paper anymore, and, like, I'm not an open house is not part of what we do to sell houses, like, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah,
You know what I
every
mean?
agent has a different strategy
Right.
for promoting and selling a property. So I think, making sure that that person is on board, because
Yeah.
I when I find that my goal is making sure that I'm meeting those clients' goals.
Mhm.
However, in order to do that, they must be open to following my professional recommendations, trusting
They
my
pay a lot
experience.
of money to not listen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And knowledge in this industry is key, and that's
Right.
what a professional agent's going to do for a client. So if they are not willing to do that, then they're not working in their best interest.
Right.
And so knowing that up front is important, because
Yeah.
then you can also make that decision if you say no to that lead or not.
Right. That's true too for, like, the buyers, right? So, like, if you have buyers that are being unrealistic, I mean, especially, like, today's market, it's too hard. Like, it's just
Hmm.
not worth it to try to help them walk through that path. It's like, if this is how it is. Do you wanna play the game or not? And, like, that's it, right?
Right, right. Um, for instance, if they're not willing to put forth their best effort, do an initial buyer consultation with the agent. If the
I'm
agent
sorry, Sonia, did you say a buyer consultation? Are you
that
also thinking a buyer agreement?
they do kind of go hand in hand, yes.
Oh my God, end the video. Like that's it, right? Like do that. If they're not willing to do that.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. It really shows you whether a person's ready to commit. And if their time frame is realistic, if they're just looking around and not really ready to buy, then it's
Right.
important to know that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I think too, like a lot of people, they're not doing the buyer consultation. A lot of real estate agents, they're definitely not getting the buyer agreement signed. And I think part of it is they're saying, well, the houses will be gone. Right. So like, what do you say to that?
Well, I think the key is preparation before you even begin.
Boom. Love it.
Yes. That initial step is key to making the rest of the process work well. Because if especially in this market with things moving so quickly, these buyers that you will meet with need to understand what the process is, how quickly it's going to happen, what is going to be involved in getting that offer approved. So there's so many things that are important to discuss up front. And then if they don't want to go get pre-approved ahead of time, forget it. I mean, there's
no way.
There's nothing that's going to work.
No. And I think so I've had times where, our process is to do like a buyer consult. I don't care if you've bought 10 houses or if this is your first one. Like I want to do a buyer consultation with you, just like I would do a listing consultation. Even if we've sold 10 of your houses, every time we're still going to do a listing consultation. It's the same, And so like I've had times where I would tell the buyer that like, hey, that's no problem. I'm happy to help. Let's just like connect first, make sure we're on the same page. How about I meet you or go over Zoom or whatever, right? And I've had times where they're like screaming, like yelling. Have you had this? Yes.
I mean, fortunately, most of my folks are pretty understanding of what's needed. And, a lot of my repeat business, it could have been even a year ago and things are completely different.
Right.
And so, it's definitely advantageous to go through all the steps again.
Yeah. And I find like those people that are like really upset or aren't willing to do the process, like you said, I mean, you're not going to work well together. You're not going to be able to help them because they're not listening to you. And it's like, if I'm not the right person for you, that's okay. Like you need to find somebody else that's like a better fit for what you're trying to do.
Right. No, that on the buyer end, there needs to be buyer agent loyalty. On the selling end, there needs to be that loyalty and there needs to be that trust.
Yeah.
That, that client's working with a professional that is looking out for them and is going to, guide them through all the steps and get them to their final goal. And ultimately, if that doesn't happen, and if the agent isn't feeling that as well, it's all about relationships. That relationship's not going to work.
Right. I always say too, like get the agreement signed, because as the parties of the agreement, you can always change what you signed, but it's very difficult if nothing has been signed, then nothing is understood, because the signing of it means that you're on the same page.
Yes, I agree.
Do you have a buyer agreement that you use that you're willing to share, or is it like a board one?
It's the generic board one.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then never mind.
Yeah.
Did you have another tip?
I guess the main motto that I always think about is really, saying no, and sometimes really opens the door to saying yes to opportunities that are a better fit.
I love that. And I think that's saying no opens the opportunities for saying yes. I mean, that's huge, right? Because I know like it's easy for us to get caught up and be like, well, first of all, you can't help everyone. Like it's
Mm,
impossible. You do not
yeah.
have enough time in the day to help everyone, right?
Hmm.
So if you're saying yes to somebody, that means you're going to have to say no to somebody else. So are the people
Exactly.
that you're saying yes to the
Hmm.
best of what's available to you? Or do you need to switch them out? Like maybe somebody else can help them, or you should have helped them in the first place,
Hmm.
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's difficult if you don't have as much business that you'd like to have to say
Hmm.
no. What do
Yeah.
you like? How do you offer from a mindset standpoint? Like, what should people be thinking? Like, how can they?
Um, well, you know, I think the first thing to think about is what kind of business model does one want to have? You
Yeah.
know, how do you envision your day to day, your week to
Hmm.
week,
Hmm.
and I've been doing this in a full-time capacity for as long as I've been in this business. And there, like you said, there are only so many hours in the day. So uh, there also has to be life balance. And whether you're just starting out in this business or you've been in it 100 years,
Right.
you have to give 110% to your business, but there are also other parts of your life that you have to
Right.
consider. So I think the overall goal of how you see your workflow with your own life responsibilities will help you determine, is that person that I'm going to be working with, one is, it may not be that you don't trust them or they're dishonest
Right.
or, things like that. It could be for very legitimate reasons. Maybe your plate could be too full,
Or maybe they're like an area that you're not that interested in.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always think too,
definitely.
like, do I want their friends and family? Do I want the referral from this? Because
Yes.
sometimes I'll work with clients where I'm just like trying to be nice or whatever, but
Hmm.
those are the ones that refer me all the time. And I'm like, oh, every time.
Yes, yes. Well, you want to work with the people you like to work with. So,
Right.
those referral clients are great if you start out with folks you really want to work with.
Exactly, exactly. But if not, if you're saying yes when you should be saying no, you're not
Yeah,
gonna like your life.
yeah. And I guess on one other part of this decision making, I also want to touch on the fact that um, on a more serious note, if an agent by any means does not feel safe working with that
Oh,
person,
for sure.
I think that's huge, listening to one's gut and just, even if all the other things add up on paper,
Yeah.
but that feeling, there's something there that's saying it's not the right fit,
Mhm.
listen to that gut feeling.
100% agree. Yes,
Yeah.
that makes so much sense. Well, I really appreciate you being on. Those are really good tips. It's like some of them are mindset shifts, and then
Sure.
some are just like tactical. So thank you for sharing. And
My pleasure. Thank you
Sonia,
for having me.
yeah, I'm glad. If people have a referral for you in Lexington, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
My cell number, which is 859-433-5024. That's always a great way. And then my email is Sonia, SONIA, at scorsonegroup.com. And that's SCORSONE group.com.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great to see you.
You too.